Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Alka. Alka, are you here? We have a question from Alka.
Yes, Janki ji, I'm here. Hari Om.
What exactly are first principles? First principles is a concept from physics, really, and it was made famous very recently by Elon Musk, who wanted to build a rocket and take it to the wherever he's taking it. But so far it's always been built by governments and things like that, or huge institutions, science institutions, and so he wanted to do it. So he sort of worked out, and what do you really need to get a rocket into space? You need this particular fuel, doing this particular thing, so he sort of worked it out. So first principles are the very fundamentals of a subject. It is like the theorems of geometry, for instance. They're the very, very fundamental basics, like in Vedanta, for instance. Human minus desires is equal to God. It's a fundamental, what should I say, building block of everything else. All desires, all agitations come from desires. These are fundamental building blocks. And so everything else, like when you hear a teacher explain things in class, unfortunately, a lot of opinions get added, but they all have to be based on those first principles. Now, as you go further and further away from the first principles, it becomes tends more into opinions. So if you only say a first principle, suppose the class was only this, all agitations come from desires, and you close, then it won't make, I mean, if you think about it enough, all of Vedanta will unfold to you. But people won't do that kind of thinking. So then starts the explanation. And then you get added many other things to it until you come right down to eventually when some prophets got absolutely fed up with the explanation, then they said, okay, just do this. Okay, so but the good thing about having a do this sort of thing is that understood what he said and you can do it. But the bad part of it is it may not be applicable across the board. However, a first principle will be applicable across the board. It's not going to make any difference. So that's sort of the difference between the ways of teaching. You can go all the way down into action or go all the way up into first principles. Just basic fundamental axioms. That's it. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you. So can we say it's like these are the laws of Vedanta, or these are the...
Yeah. Basics, yeah, which will not move. Basically, in Vedanta, there's very little to learn. Everything is only an explanation of those basic laws.
Thank you.
We'll, of course, study all this in greater depth when we do How Do You Know What You Know?
Thank you. Got it.
Sarthak. Ma'am, somewhere people define brahmacharya as path of Brahman and somewhere as celibacy. I'm getting quite confused. Is there some benefit to conserve of bodily fluids? I'm asking for the first ashrama meant for students. Sarthak, these are all matters not of first principles but of opinions. Opinions are based on first principles as well as the current situation which is being faced by a person, just like a prescription. The doctor knows the first principles of medicine, and then he knows the exact situation of his patient, and he applies those first principles and comes up with a prescription. All right, so a prescription needs to have complete information about the thing that you are prescribing for. First principles don't require any kind of knowledge of who you're speaking to. I mean, the fact will remain the fact. So I hope that much is clear. Now, somewhere people define brahmacharya as the path to Brahman. Yes, that is the etymological derivation. Brahman charati iti brahmacharya. When you walk the path of Brahman, that is brahmacharya. Your the charati, behavior, actions, when you do those kind of things. And somewhere it's defined as celibacy. Celibacy sometimes is used by certain people when they find that it is an hindrance to their path. So they may use it. Some people may not find celibacy necessary. Some people may find celibacy necessary. It's entirely dependent on the person who is being spoken about. So there's nothing to get confused about. Each one of us will have to decide for ourselves, based on the facts of life, what is relevant for us and what is not relevant for us, based on where you're trying to get. So is there some benefit to conserve bodily fluids? The benefit of any form of conservation is what is its redirection to? There is no inherent, just conserve something. Conserve for what? So you have to have a much more holistic view of it. It is not like you don't pluck one thing out and you say, oh, this is important, and you pluck another thing out and say that, that's how we deal with health nowadays. You say, suddenly you read an article, vitamin C is very good for health, then the whole world will go about buying vitamin C. Suddenly during the pandemic, I believe crores and crores were spent in buying vitamin C. So you just pick one thing out like that. So in other words, you eat fried food, you eat junk food, you do all the nonsense in the world, you don't exercise, you get agitated, you don't sleep enough, and then you have vitamin C. That's crazy, right? So how do you get health? That you balance all the various factors that are required for it. Similarly, how do you get spiritual growth? You balance all the factors that are required for it. You don't pluck out one thing and say, oh, this is very good and this is very bad. Okay, very good, but it's good in a sort of context. Okay, Sarthak, are you okay? Were you expecting yes and no? You should have known me by now that you won't get any
Yes,
yes
ma'am.
and
I
no.
was kind of expecting a like simpler answer for my level. Like your level is very high. I am like a simple student. I was expecting a very simple answer.
Sorry, Sarthak, that your question wasn't well answered, but the fact remains, what can I tell you? There is no plucking one thing out. Oh, you must be kind. Suppose I tell you, Sarthak, you must be kind on the spiritual path, and you pluck just that thing out. Then you say, but then Krishna said to fight. You can't pluck one thing out like that. You can't say, oh, I'm going to do this one. What do you mean you can't do this one? You got to do the whole thing in a balanced way. And how much of each one to do is up to you to decide, because your personality will require something.
Ma'am, actually, I was learning the 17 chapter shlokas of tapa of the body. So there comes a word brahmacharyam. So like there he meant path of Brahman or celibacy. That's like the simplest thing I was asking. Uh, that what he means, Krishna, what he means.
Well, now you are repeating your question, and I'm only going to repeat my answer. So you may like the answer or you may not like the answer, but you're not getting any other answer from me. So that's it.
So
So
he
think,
means both. So he means both, you mean.
I told you what I had to say, Sarthak. Now it's up to you to think about it. You can accept the answer or you can reject the answer. That's entirely at your own discretion. But you will have to figure out what he is saying to you. You have to figure it out. But as far as the class answer is concerned, you have it. I
Okay,
hope
ma'am.
you have registered. Can you repeat the answer in one line?
It's for you to decide.
Based on two things. Number one, what are the facts of life? Number two, what are you trying to attain? Okay?
Okay.
Deepa. Adi Shankaracharya says satsang is important. Correct. And yesterday we learned getting happy, going to temples or classes or rajasic. What are we trying to get at? Yes, the whole thing. Deepa, your question is the same as Sarthak's. If anything that we do on the spiritual path has to be based on an understanding of what we have been told and what we are using to get where. If I go to the temple simply because I go there and I feel nice, I can go for that reason. This is called rajasic pleasure. If I go to a temple, regardless of whether I feel nice or not, I may feel nice or I may not feel nice, but I'm going there because I believe that it is a stepping stone towards spiritual growth or whatever in the world I'm doing it for. Then it will become sattvic pleasure. So it all depends on whether your attitude in life is I'm doing this to make me happy or I'm doing this to get somewhere.
Got it.
I couldn't hear you, Deepa.
Yeah, I don't have proper Wi-Fi connection. I got
Okay, just give me a thumbs up if you're good.
I got it.
I can't hear what you're saying. I understood your Wi-Fi connection isn't good. So just give a thumbs up if you're good. Okay, so we'll assume she is good. Let us figure out what we are doing today. So we have studied now the reason why people suffer, good people suffer. And should we just read the text together? If you have any questions, we'll take it up. Otherwise, we'll just read the text together. Who volunteers to read?
I will read, ma'am.
Oh, please do, Amarender.
The aggressive and the passive. The nature of human beings fall under two broad classifications, the aggressive and the passive. The aggressive are those who use their intellect in life's activities, while the passive operate from the level of their mind. Again, each of these can be classified as good or bad. Thus, there are the aggressive good and aggressive bad persons. Likewise, the passive good and passive bad as illustrated below. Can I continue till
Yes,
another?
continue till the end of the para.
Oh. The terms aggressive and passive have a special connotation derived by the use or non-use of the intellect. The mind and the intellect are the two equipments which propel human activity. The body cannot act on its own. Actions proceed from either the mind or the intellect. A person is considered passive when he acts from his mind without the guidance of the intellect, whereas he who uses his intellect to direct his mind and body to act is classified as aggressive. I mean, if I summarize in one word, they both all this aggressive and passive, they differ by the use or non-use of the intellect. That is a simple understanding of that.
Very good. So there are two types of people, correct? Very good. Two types of people, the aggressive and passive. Aggressive are those who use their intellect, passive are those who don't use their intellect, who function on the mind. Aggressive people can use their intellect for good purposes or for bad purposes, and passive people can use their mind again in a good sense or in a bad sense. Okay, so clear so far. Uh, so who will read the next paragraph?
May I, Janki ji?
Please
Hari
do.
Om. Hari Om. A passive person functioning from the mental level lives by his feelings rather than reason and judgment. He does not think, discriminate with his intellect, nor scrutinize, analyze his actions, much less questions their merit or demerit. He lives a routine, mechanical pattern of life, follows blindly the life of his family, predecessors, environment, situation, and circumstances shape his individuality rather than his individuality shaping them. By and large, he lives an unintelligent, dogged life of passive acceptance of whatever has gone before him. He lacks the intellect, initiative to use his human resources to rise above external influence and steer himself to a meaningful, purposeful life. Such passivity may lean towards good or
Oh,
bad.
no, just summarize this. We'll go paragraph by
Um,
paragraph. Just make sure everybody has got the idea.
A passive person is living by his feelings rather than any reason. And the environment and situation and circumstances shape his individuality rather than his individuality shaping them.
Yes. So please understand the nature of a passive individual very carefully, because he has told us in this paragraph. What is the most fundamental thing about a passive person is that he never questions his actions. Razar, if you want to study from the very beginning, you can start the new text with us, which we are starting on Thursday, 1st April, or just do Vedanta Treatise. Don't worry about beginning because it loops on itself. So you can read Vedanta Treatise on your own, or you can study with us Thursday evenings where we're starting a new text. All right. So what is the nature of a passive person? Is that yes, Soma, that's correct. He's mechanical. He is all these things. I'm not saying these because I think that you already know these. But the most fundamental thing, because we have to check where we are being passive, right? At the end of this today, we must know where we are being passive. Is we don't question whether a particular action is right or wrong. We make assumptions. That nature of ours to make assumptions is the passivity. We don't question it, right? We are so sure. We are so sure about everything. About this is good, this is bad, whatever. We're just sure about it. And that's the real killer of life for us. In fact, that's what how do you know what you know is about. Are you making unnecessary assumptions, especially with reference to your own actions, that these actions are good and I must do them? So many people have made hell out of their lives because they simply did not question a particular action. And it doesn't occur to us that it is this action that is causing me all the trouble. We don't get it. And that's the passivity. And the others you can easily sort of understand. He is routine, mechanical. Now you understand that one quality, you'll understand. It's routine, it's mechanical, it's what the family did, it's what predecessors did. Now I hope you can see how it all falls into place. And that's why his individuality is shaped by outside and not by his own intellect. This unintelligent, dogged life of passive acceptance. Remember, passive acceptance means what? When we are grumbling, it's called passive acceptance. Please get that. When we are grumbling, it's passive acceptance. Because why on earth are you grumbling about something? Take action. What's the grumbling about? So grumbling, complaining, all this is passivity in us. So when he said passive acceptance, doesn't mean he just says, oh, theek hai. That is a possibility. Even the grumbling, the complaining, all of that also comes under passive acceptance. Because it's, when you're grumbling, please understand what you accepted. You have accepted the situation as so, and you're saying, I don't like it so. You're not saying the situation doesn't have to be so, and I will see how not to let it be so. That is why we will grumble about the dirt in our streets. We will grumble about the corruption in our politicians. We will grumble and grumble forever about 100 things. It's the passive acceptance of things as they are. Clear? Why do we do that? We lack the intellect. We lack the initiative to use our human resources to rise above the external influences and have a meaningful, purposeful life. The opposite of a meaningful, purposeful life is a life of passivity. Now, when you have a meaningful life, you have initiative. You decide where you want to go and you go there. You don't just say, I like to go there, but my mother-in-law doesn't let me, my wife doesn't let me, my circumstances don't let me. That's what Churchill said, remember? He said in the World War, the Germans had U-boats, and they were hugely dangerous. They were submarines, and they would sort of just blow up the British ships because they couldn't even be seen, right? So the ships were like unwilling to proceed in those waters because you don't know where the U-boat is. So those were Churchill's famous words. He said, "Damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. I don't care what's on the way. Oh, you go ahead. We'll deal with whatever comes. Initiate. And go for it. Not sit and grumble. Not sit and hope and long and want. All that is passivity." So please read this paragraph carefully because we have to identify where this is happening in our life and stop ourselves from behaving like that. Okay? Now this kind of
Janki ji,
yeah.
may I ask a question? So, like you mentioned, grumbling and complaining, are there any other signs also to look out for passivity?
Yeah, you may not grumble, but you've accepted that's the way things are. Let us say a wife is being beaten up by her husband. She may not grumble. She'll just say, "Bhagwan ne mujhe aise rakha hai, to aise hi rakhna chahiye." Rani of Jhansi won't say that. She'll say, "What nonsense! You beat me one, I'll beat you twice." I mean, I'm not suggesting, please, that you start beating up people. Please understand the right thing. It just means you can be passively accepting of things. When you read passive acceptance, the reason I highlighted the other side is because when you hear passive acceptance, you think, I'm not passively accepting. I'm shouting, I'm screaming, I'm grumbling. No, but even that is passive acceptance. The only reason to say that was to highlight that acceptance doesn't mean that you have accepted it in the sense that you say, okay, this is fine. So, okay, this is fine is one form of acceptance. Or like, for instance, let us say I have diabetes or whatever, or I'm 100 kgs. I can say, okay, I say hai to hai. That's one form of acceptance. Or I can go on grumbling all the time. I have this, I have that, I have that. So what are you doing about it is the question. Is that clear, Reshma?
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, Ajay.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up from that statement of Churchill, "Damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead." Wouldn't that also be a little provocative and scary since you are moving ahead without even a potential plan, knowing very well that you are walking into a potential minefield and risking the lives of hundreds of thousands of your soldiers?
Yeah, I mean, one assumes he has done all that. One assumes that he has a clear plan. He understands what the situation is. The situation was that, at that point at least, was that there was a danger of Germany walking into England, and they may well have. So he couldn't afford to take the risk. He has obviously done, or one hopes he has done his risk analysis properly. And then, of course, there will always be naysayers around you. There'll always be people to tell you that something cannot be done. But if for all those who've actually ever done anything in life, they know that the naysayers are no more right than they've been. In our own small way, we've seen that, right? We've seen how many silly projects we started, how many silly things we've done so far. They worked. And yet people told us it's silly. And they were. They said, how can you do this? Sometimes we took on a project that costs 4 lakhs. And how much do you have in your pocket? Nothing. And how do you think this is going to be done? I don't know how it's going to be done, but it'll be done. And throughout, we've gone through decades of doing this, taking up projects with which we had absolutely nothing, zero. We're starting at zero. And we did it because of the dedication of the people who were doing it. They were not going to wait behind for somebody to help them. They were just going to go and do it. Somebody helped, great. If nobody helped, well, they're going to go ahead and do it. And exactly as you are doing, Ajay, right at the moment, or as all of us are doing at the moment, look at the project we have. We want to start a residential school for Vedanta, which runs 2-year postgrad programs. Okay, what a fantastic notion. What do you have currently? Do you have an institution? No. Do you have ATG? No. Has anybody offered you any property to do this on? No. Then how do you think you're going to do it? We are going to do it. Why do we think we are going to do it? because it is a contribution to this world and it'll be very important that we do it. We'll do it or we'll die in the attempt. One of the two. So this is what we've taken up. We've all taken this up. People will tell us, no, it's silly. You can't do it. And we'll tell them, we'll do it or we'll die in the attempt because it's worth doing. It's simply worth doing. Somebody has to bell the cat. And we take this one on our shoulders. So yes, of course, you think of everything, but you think of everything in terms of where you want to get. And you do your risk analysis, okay? It is not it is not saying that you just do anything stupid, but you do whatever is required to achieve a worthy end, a noble end. And if you try to achieve a noble end from somewhere, somehow, the help will come. You become like, a conduit for it. Allow the grace of the Lord to function. Allow it to function. Be willing to be that conduit. Be willing to be the conduit means be willing to work hard. Be willing to make the sacrifice. Be willing to conceive something nobler and greater. And the grace of the Lord will flow. And you say, what is the grace of the Lord? Suddenly you brought a new thing and so far you never spoke about it. Grace of the Lord means things will happen. If it's worthy of happening, it'll happen. It'll happen either in our lifetime or after our lifetime, but it will happen because it's worthy of happening. Okay, Ajay?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Akhila, in terms of gunas, a passive good would have more rajas and tamas, right? Akhila, you must never do this thing. Don't do this now. To sort of take two concepts and try to superimpose them. Because when the two concepts themselves are unclear and not fully established, you can't go from unknown to learn something. So just, this question is exactly what I had asked when I had first heard it. And I'm giving the answer my teacher gave me. In retrospect, it was the most sensible answer. It may not appear sensible to you now, just as it didn't appear to me sensible then. Just as today's answer didn't appear sensible to Sarthak, this is just normal life going on. Okay, when we first hear things, they don't even sound sensible to us. They think like, why do you confuse life? Why don't you just say yes or no and make life simple? In fact, Mahesh, I think, told me yesterday. I know he sent out a mail saying that come to the Q&A. Something. It'll be so he said you will learn a lot or something he had written. I said, no, why learn a lot? Why don't you say you'll, it'll be thought provoking, something like that. Why should we make a claim that you will learn a lot? He said, what is the point of me coming with a question if you're going to make me think again? You give me the answer. Which is how people look at it. Why are you making me think now? I thought no, and I came up with the question no. Now why are you making me think again? Because really from outside, nobody can answer our questions. So it doesn't even sound right to us when we're given a correct answer. That's what's so frightening in life. It doesn't even sound right. Sometimes things sound right, sometimes don't. So it will not sound right to you, maybe, Akhila, when I'm telling you, please don't do this. Don't do this sort of fixing concepts together. Because let both the concepts just understand one concept fully and then the other concept fully, and then you clearly see how all of it fits together. The pieces of the jigsaw, let them fall into place on their own. Don't superficially or prematurely do that. Sorry, Akhila. I'm giving you all very disappointing answers today. But if you want to know what is passivity, passivity is always a sign of tamas.
I have a question. So to let go of analysis, so intellect is about analysis, about reasoning. at some point, maybe you decide that enough of analysis, damn the torpedoes, and full steam ahead. So, is that decision also part of the intellect? It is,
Yes,
right?
of course. If it is not, you will meet huge trouble. You have understood it. You have taken cognizance of every factor and then made that statement.
So, letting go of analysis is also an intellect.
Yes, because if you hang on to analysis beyond a point, it's just involvement in the analysis. It's a mind-driven activity. It is what in management terminology, I don't know if you've heard this term, it used to be there many years ago, analysis paralysis.
Yes, it's still there, yes.
Okay. So that's in Vedantic terms, it is when the mind gets involved in the analysis. So you can't take an action and you can't move because the involvement is in the analysis. Okay, just to make that crystal clear, it is the mind that always gets involved and it is the intellect that stays objective. Now, the mind can get involved in physical things, such as in sense pleasures. The mind can get involved in emotional things, such as love or hate or anger or any of these. And the mind gets involved in the intellectual pursuits. It can get involved in maybe reading, in even in thinking, in analysis, in mathematics. So the mind can get involved. Okay, so the mind can get involved in physical or mental or intellectual things. Unfortunately, when the mind gets involved in intellectual things, we believe it's the intellect. It is not. Is that clear?
Yes, somewhat. Yes. But Janki, they say.
I was wondering, how did you say yes, Omkar? I was really beginning to worry about you. Yes, go ahead.
It's often said in marketing that power comes from involving the emotions of the consumer. So anything great, probably history also says this, is when the emotions of the people were stirred. And it's not when you say that think about it and analyze it and we get great things done. It's you appeal to the emotion of the person. How does that go with this idea of?
What a nice question, Omkar. Can anyone answer this question? Can you put what the answer to Omkar's question in terms of what we are studying right now?
The aggressive bad will influence the passive good because they are not using their intellect.
Okay, but don't put a value judgment and call all the marketing people bad. Very good, Reshma. The aggressive understand people who use their head understand that 90% of people don't. So if you're in a field like marketing, you don't appeal to the head because you want to be, if you're in mass marketing, you want to get to the 90%. You won't get to them through the head. They're not using it. So any sensible person will appeal to emotion, not through the head. Why do you think that Vedanta is so unpopular? Why is it that, in a Vedanta class at max, you get like 100 students? Okay, in our total classes, like all the 4 classes, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all put together, we must be like, what, 400, 450 in the whole lot of us? How come? You have a Bhagavad Saptah, even online only, you will get 10,000 people listening. Because that is going to touch emotions. It's going to make your heart cry and laugh and sing and feel sad. Imagine all that sorrow of, the great appeal of Ramayana. Think of this great Rama, Maryada Purushottam, thrown out, as it were, for no reason, no fault of his own. I mean, like, even today, you heard that story a million times. You hear the Ram Katha or you hear the, which Indian doesn't know this story? And yet every time you feel the same emotion, strong emotion. That is why it's such a classic text. I hope you all will one day all study Sanskrit and be able to read the original Valmiki Ramayana on your own also. It's so simple. And it's so deep in its emotion that it appeals to your emotion at all times. That's why the book will last forever. It says that Ramayana will last forever. So is that clear, Omkar? What is happening is, if you're a thinker, you understand that nobody else is a thinker. And when you understand nobody else is a thinker, you don't give them logic and reason, you appeal to emotion.
Got it. But Janki, you should address Sarthak's question.
What's there, Sarthak? Where is Sarthak? What is his question?
Ma'am, I don't have a question.
Statement. Very interesting.
It would be more students if you advertise better. Sarthak, you know why Omkar is finding that interesting? Because he is in charge. He and Bharat are in charge of getting more students. They poor things are working very hard, but when people come to the class, then they run for their lives because that's really not what they wanted. They wanted, अच्छा कोई story बताओ, कुछ हमको अच्छी बातें सुनाओ. ये क्या लोग हैं इतने ड्राई कुछ इंटेलेक्चुअल करते रहते हैं. ये वेदांतन तो ऐसे ही होते हैं. So they are working very hard. Bharat.
Ma'am, they should use Instagram Reels to advertise, because Instagram itself is like free advertisement right now. So they should edit your videos and pick out small statements that make sense to everyone and put them on Instagram Reels. That's my idea.
Okay, great, Sarthak, but execute the idea, no? Why are you telling them to? You do whatever you think needs to be done.
Ma'am, I always wanted to, but like it's not my property. Like it's your, na, so I can't do it. I always wanted to put videos.
I don't do any of this. Bharat does it. Omkar does it. So if you claim it is my property, which it isn't, then how are they doing it? They are doing it, right? How did they start doing it? They came and they said, I'm going to do it. By my permission. No, nobody here asked my permissions, Sarthak. It's very sad. They never ask my permission. They just go and do stuff. Sometimes I have to hold them and say, hold on to them for dear life and say, chodo, stop. Yeah, please, aise mat bolo, because sometimes they say things about me that I'm horrified when I read. So nobody's asking my permission. You know all these people, right? They don't ask for permission. Bharat is saying something to you. Okay, now let's see. Sundar. Surendra Nagarajan. Yes, Surendra, passive means tamasic. That's correct. Surekha. How can we do this without being agitated? Surekha, if we are agitated, that means we are being passive. Because when we are using the intellect, we don't get agitated. What is there to get agitated about? See, suppose somebody does something really idiotic, like in where you're staying. At the moment, life is difficult, right? And people are doing maybe some very idiotic things, which is putting the life of everybody around them into danger. So what's there to get agitated about? You understand these people who are doing these idiotic things, as far as we are concerned, they're acts of God, right? I mean, like, we have no control over who thinks what and goes and blows up a bomb where. So you understand it as an act of God insofar as it's always possible at any moment for any one of us to be involved in any kind of thing. This is just one of the things that will happen. So just as we protect ourselves from other things, we protect ourselves with financial failure with our investments. We protect ourselves from failure of our organs through taking care of our health. We protect ourselves from from being robbed by making sure that we keep our things carefully, we keep things that are important to us under lock and key. We don't leave our documents out for the servants to just say, "Arey, ye paper kyun hai?" and to throw it into the bin. We don't do that. We take care, right? So that doesn't agitate us to save or to go for a walk. I mean, I know how well you take care of your health. So you're not agitated about taking care of your health. However, that's what you do, right? You do your exercise, you eat healthy food, you do everything. That's called using the intellect. Now, if you get agitated about something, that means in that area, the intellect is not functional. Is that clear? I'm giving you all very bad answers today, is it? Surekha, you're good? Okay. Sahadev, is judging done both by mind and intellect? Interesting. Yes, Sahadev, it is done by both mind and intellect, except we use different words for it. When it is done by the mind, you use a word like judgmental, critical, uh, those kind of words, judgmental, maybe arrogant, maybe lack of identification. All this is, these are the type of words you use. But when it's done by the intellect, then the kind of words you use is discrimination, understanding, words like that. But in both cases, there's some kind of a judgment involved. The mind judges passively. It judges in the sense that as I like it is the way you should be. Basically, that's the mind's equation. And if it is not, then I'm going to say you're a really horrible person. And if you are doing what I like, then I'm going to say you're a really wonderful person. So this is the way the mind judges, as it were. And intellect is more understanding, is discrimination, it understands that, the various levels of everything. And so this is the way it will be. Okay.
Thank you, Janki.
Okay, Akhila. Sarthak, yes, you can help advertise. Bharat, correct. Can you please explain why not more people attend such classes? Didn't get you. Reshma, because there's no appeal, there is not no appeal to emotion. There is less appeal to emotion than there is in other things. Would more people like to go to a movie? I don't know what. See, White Tiger. Why is White Tiger so popular nowadays? Because appealing to emotion. It is telling you something through the method of emotion. Why would people like to read stories, novels, more than non-fiction? Because it's appealing to emotion. Because 90% are passive, right? That means emotion is going to be their main motivating factor. That is what is going to make them act. During the American, what is the movement called, when they were abolishing slaves, so many pamphlets, so much literature was written about explaining why it's so bad to have slaves, and nothing much happened until Harriet Stoker wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. And that one book, which made the whole country cry, did more to abolish slavery than all the logic put together, because it just showed the pain that everybody went through. So that you can easily understand, that you can easily relate. Everybody can understand. So people don't attend such classes because here is struggle. Here is irritation. Why are you making me think? You tell me know what to do. No, we won't tell you what to do. You please think for yourself. Okay, Reshma? Yes, Brinda, you can use the word biased also. Nanda, one reason for leaving classes is free availability on YouTube. People prefer watching at their convenience. Oh, okay. So, good if they're watching at their convenience. As long as they learn the knowledge, you don't have to come to a live class. I don't know whether they're leaving classes, are they? Okay, Shanta. Anita, yes. Harriet Beecher's Stowe, Uncle Tom's Cabin, yes. Even in the in Britain, there was a lot written on how badly the orphanages are run, and a lot of even questions and before or after. A lot of the intellectuals realized that the orphanages were run very badly, but what brought a huge change in the whole system of these orphanages is, what, in Britain? Anyone is aware of this?
Oliver Twist,
Yes.
Charles Dickens.
Very good, huh? Very good. What are you, Anita? You seem to know all the... Yes, Akhila, I know you are a lit teacher professor, so you'd know. Anita, you're also into lit?
Yeah, I've done my literature.
Okay.
English
So
literature.
so you're right. So these books were sort of iconic because they changed systems. Because they made everybody cry. Because you remember the famous lines, Oliver asks for more. Oliver asks for more means what? You gave him less. He's not asking for more. You are not giving him food. What do you expect he'll do? Gone with the Wind, Meera, for what? I don't know what changed Gone with the Wind did. It's a classic, of course, but these books are those that brought about huge social change. I don't know if Gone with the Wind made any social change. I'm not aware, Meera, whether it worked on slavery. Anyway, let's all come back to what we were doing. So I hope passivity is clear. Basically, hold on to this one thought on passivity, which is that, come on now, tell me.
Non-use of intellect.
No. I mean, non-use, I'm sure you all understand, but to understand when we are doing it, hold on to one basic thought. It is?
Never questions his actions.
Never questions his actions. Very good, Jyoti. Doesn't question it. Makes all these assumptions that this has to be like this. ऐसे ही करना है, ऐसे ही बोला है करने के लिए. It doesn't question anything. That is the fulcrum of. So in your text, you can underline the line, nor scrutinize, analyze his actions, much less question their merit or demerit. He's so conditioned to doing things, he doesn't even scrutinize that should I do it or not. And then merit or demerit is a much further step. Yes, of course, Ramayana helps people improve their emotions. Yes. Okay, so who will read the next paragraph? So far, so good. Please underline that. Nor scrutinize, analyze his actions, much less question their merit or demerit. So that you'll remember that is what you have to hold on to. Have I scrutinized this action? Have I questioned its merit or demerit? If not, passive. Then all the others are just the consequence of this kind of behavior. Okay, who will read the next paragraph? What happened?
Ma'am, I'll read it.
Please, Sarthak.
This first paragraph, right? Such passivity.
Yeah.
Such passivity may lean towards good or bad. A passively bad person leads a wrongful, immoral life without really intending to do so. He does not willfully, guilefully plan or scheme activities to meet his private ends. He does not mean to be bad. He continues to live a wrong way of life, usually inherited from his past. His intellect does not consciously examine the nature of his activity and its repercussions. He is caught up in a mode of living which happens to be bad.
Read the next paragraph also.
So it is with the passively good person. He is involved in a way of life which happens to be good, moral, without even realizing it to be so. He merely leads his life based on good impulses. He does not plan and execute a virtuous way of living. His intellect has not gone through the process of analyzing and determining a right course of life. He carries on unmindful of the repercussion of his action. Such indiscriminate action, however good, may at times prove detrimental to himself and his society. So to summarize, this guy acts more on his impulses and on his mind rather than sharpening his intellect. And let's just say he doesn't research much before going into any actions. He just goes with what feels right rather than what is actually right.
Yes, and this can happen for good purposes or bad purposes, but he doesn't know whether it's good or bad because he's never scrutinized it. Okay, clear about this? He just continues a wrong way of life that has been going on in the past, and that's the passively bad. Or he just continues a good way of life that has been coming from the past, and that's the passively good. They are not trying to achieve anything by doing those things. They're not trying to plan, program, reach some particular end. They happen to always do this, so they are doing it. There's no real purpose. So my last line, such indiscriminate action, however good, may at times prove detrimental to himself and his society. Like a mother being very, very, she has learned that you should not hit children. So she never hits her child. She never raises her voice at her child. And the child goes completely out of control. So she's being good, as it were, because she's been told this is a bad thing to do, to raise your voice or hit the child. So she's being good, but the child has gone completely out of control. Or some people do charity like that until they actually wreck the person that they're giving that money to. Or some people are very forgiving and therefore create problems for themselves and for the person they're being forgiving towards. There's a famous story, about a thief. He was being taken to the gallows. I don't know if you heard this story. As children, we were told this story that there's a thief. He's being taken to the gallows, and they asked him, "What is your last wish?" And he said, "My last wish is to meet my mother." So they called his mother, and when she came, he said, "Let me tell you something in your ear." So she put her ear to his face, and then he bit off her ear. The story goes. And so, why did you do this horrible thing? Because the first day when I told you I stole something from school and brought it home, if you had hit me then, I would not be going to the gallows now. So the mother may have been trying to be very good to her child, but the end result is the child is now going to the gallows. Okay. Jyoti. Can we say they are stagnant? Yes, they are certainly stagnant. They're definitely not going anywhere in life. Not improving themselves and just going with the flow. They're not, forget improving themselves, they're not doing anything. And they'll achieve nothing in life. Not improve themselves, not improve their condition, not improve anything. Nothing outside, nothing inside. Nothing is going anywhere. Now, we don't call it going with the flow, because going with the flow, this terminology means something quite different. Going with the flow means being at the very peak of your performance. But nowadays, of course, people say go with the flow just like that. But going with the flow in its actual usage means that being at peak performance, when your mind and intellect are in complete sync and you're doing, like, you're so good at that thing and you do it perfectly and there's no interruption from anything within your personality. You're in the moment, as it were, in the present. So that's a different usage. But in this case, it is only stagnation and achieving nothing in life. Okay, Jyoti?
Yes, thank you.
Who will read?
Janki-ji,
Yeah,
a question. So can a person start off being aggressive and then just take to mechanical activity after that?
of course, anything is possible. It is less and less likely the more aggressive you get, but you can, right? Because let's say a person, he's working, he's in office, he's very aggressive, he's thinking things through, but then he retires, or he takes this horrible voluntary retirement, and then he just stagnates after that. He just got used to something and just keeps doing it. Yes, so it's a possibility.
Thank you.
Janki-ji, to that question, you often talk about the merit of routine. If your life has a routine, it is a better life. So would that also happen, that you get into a routine and then you become passive because of the routine? Yes.
Only in that case, we don't call it routine. See, this is how language is. We really have to do. How do you know what you know? This is how language can take us off. A routine life is a mechanical life. A disciplined life is a life where your intellect has decided that I need to do X, Y, and Z on a daily basis, weekly basis, whatever basis, to reach a particular goal. And your discipline has been placed by your intellect to reach somewhere, and you're doing this on a daily basis. That's your discipline. And routine is, you just happen to fall in a routine, right? Suppose you happen to fall into this routine that मैं 10 बजे उठता हूँ और फिर कोई मुझे नाश्ता देता है और फिर 12 बजे मैं I sort of have another snack, फिर 2 बजे हम लोग लंच खाते हैं, फिर 3 बजे मैं नहाने जाता हूँ. You've fallen into a routine because of maybe circumstances or whatever. Other people in the house are doing this thing, whatever is happening. This is routine. It's not discipline. Discipline takes you somewhere because you've figured out what you want to do, when you want to do, how much you want to do, and where is all this supposed to take you. Oh, this difference is clear, right? So
Yes.
routine is bad and discipline is good. Okay, so routine is definitely passive. Discipline can become passive if at some stage the intellect switches off and then you're in like sort of cruise control, as it were. Okay, so I guess we will continue reading it next time. I thought we will finish reading it this time, but we'll finish reading it, hopefully, fingers crossed, next time. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Janki ji. Thank you.
Thank you.